Hi, welcome to the Unit 2.3 Solutions Chemistry video. This is part 1 of 3. For each section, you will be watching some sort of supplemental video to complete your learning. Just so you know, this video doesn't necessarily line up with any key questions. It's more of fundamental knowledge that is useful for not only the AP exam, but just to make you in general more effective in chemistry. So in this unit, we've been looking at solutions chemistry, and we're going to focus on solutions fundamental knowledge related to acid and bases. So the outline for the entire unit 2.3 is first we're going to talk about naming acids, and we're going to do that in part 1. Then we're going to go into conjugate acids and bases, and we're going to do that in part 2 and 3. So naming acids, you're going to watch one or the other video, so you choose which one you want to watch. For the first video, you're going to use you can use the note packet. For the second video, you're going to take your own notes in the section designated for you to take notes. You're focusing on writing notes for naming different types of acids, and you'll see there are generally 3 types. So at this moment, you can start the video. It's linked in the assignment. And then after you watch the video, we'll come back and just quickly talk about the CFU and the flowchart. Okay, so welcome back. Hope you found one of those videos helpful in terms of your understanding for naming acids and bases. So here you have your first CFU. There are some example. You're naming acids, or you're writing the chemical formula for the acid if you're given the name. So like for number 4, you're given the name, so you write the chemical formula. And these were the answers that you saw. There's just one correction I want to point out. Sulfurous acid, the formula should be H2SO3, not SO4, so change that to a 3. And remember, that's because sulfurous comes from the ite, polyatomic ion, so sulfite. And sulfite has a chemical formula of SO3 2-. And so this corresponding acid would be H2SO3. So please make that correction. Okay, let's get into this flow chart here at the end. So you may be wondering, what do you do with this? Or maybe you know. You have learned a lot of naming rules, and flowcharts are super helpful when you're given a bunch of rules and you're trying to sort of figure out what you should be thinking about when employing or utilizing those rules. So the first question, if you're given the chemical formula of something, you want to ask if it has a polyatomic ion. So if you're given the chemical formula of an acid, ask yourself, does it have a polyatomic ion? That's the first question you should ask. And then if your answer to that is yes, so you'll have to write yes here. Then the next question you ask yourself is, what's the suffix? And that's what's the suffix of the polyatomic ion. So remember, polyatomic ions have 2 general suffixes, or the anions have 2 general suffixes, ate or ite. If it ends in ate, still if the polyatomic ion is acetate, phosphate, sulfate, then in that case, what is the suffix you're going to use for the acid? So what suffix do you use for an acid if the polyatomic ion is ate? You're going to fill that in, and then you're going to write an example. Likewise, if the suffix was of the polyatomic ion is ite, so remember this is the suffix for the polyatomic ion, what's the suffix that you would use for the acid, and then write an example. Finally, going back up to the top, if we were asked if your acid has a polyatomic ion and you say no, then there are a different set of rules where you need to write a prefix and a suffix for the acid. So what's the prefix and suffix for that acid, and then give an example. So again, this is just super helpful for sort of organizing your knowledge. All right, that's it for part 1. And we're going to start part 2 in the next video, where we go into conjugate acids and bases.